All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you. Welcome to our panel on developer experience. My name is Julie Shen. I'm a principal with Deloitte Consulting in our technology, media, and telecom practice, and I'm very excited to be your moderator for today. So developer experience is part of Deloitte Engineering's portfolio of capabilities. This is an area of our business where we've really doubled down in the last few years. We're able to provide the full breadth of capabilities from back of napkin ideation to implementation and maintenance, and we combine that with our depth of industry expertise. For DevX, we've helped our clients navigate their journeys from everything from understanding the impact of AI on software development, to cultivating developer trust and loyalty, to accelerating their own internal DevX functions to drive developer impact. Some of our learnings were recently published in the Deloitte Tech Trends 2024 research. So in the developer experience article, we talk about this shift in focus from DevOps to DevX. DevOps has now become mainstream. For companies who really want to drive developer impact, they must cultivate a developer-first mindset through DevX. So with me today, I have three other leaders who are passionate about developer experience. I'll let you introduce yourself. Please tell us your name, your role, and what developer experience means to you.
Thanks, Julie. My name is Ovetta Samson, and I'm the Director of User Experience for Google's Machine Learning Group. I like to say that I have the smartest and most particular user group in the world. My team helps to design the products and tools that Google developers use to build products and tools for the rest of the world. So we're definitely meta. And so developer experience means, to me, layers. We have our first-party developers that we work with to enhance their experience at Google. The smartest and the brightest come to work there, and so we are always working just ahead of the curve. We believe, and hopefully not where the puck is, but where it's going, to improve the developer experience for Googlers. But also, we help with third-party development. So when we do amazing development tools for our internal groups, from our research groups, from Google DeepMind, all the way through to our enterprise machine learning groups and other core development groups, then we can share that in different ways, and open source and also products with third-party developers who do not work at Google but want to use Google products. And so when I think of the developer experience, I think of a knit and a network of enterprise users who want to help and improve the experience for their own companies and organizations, but also developers who are out there trying to create the latest and greatest innovation and need the tools and products to do it.
Thanks, Ovetta. Hi, everyone. I'm Sejal Amin. I'm the CTO at Shutterstock. And in that role, I am responsible for all of the engineers that build products and services our end users consume, as well as all of our internal technology. So I think I'm managing all of the developer groups that you just described, Ovetta. But a majority of my time is probably spent on managing the experience of our internal developers. And what that means to me is creating all of the right conditions so that developers can be their best. They can do their best, in that we are reducing their cognitive load, and we're creating the right conditions in which they're constantly learning and continuously improving every day.
Love it. Tim Juravich, I'm principal at Deloitte. I run our experience and product engineering practice. And I really help our clients build new solutions, take them over, scale them, and grow them into something awesome. Developer experience for me, I've been a developer for as long as I knew you could have a job. And that's been my passion point. So sometimes developer experience, we'll talk a lot about, the big topics of metrics and productivity and satisfaction. But I also remember those super late nights because my identity was just put into writing code. There's ups and downs, there's challenges, and there's a person making that happen. And that all of those people together build high productivity engineering solutions. So, it's certainly a passion point for me, as it is for all of us, and excited to chat through it today.
Great. So some of you talked about this in your intro, but to kick us off, tell us a bit more about the role that developers play in your organization in driving business value. Ovetta, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I work at Google, so they play a pretty big part. I like to say that I have the distinct and wonderful honor to work with some of the smartest people on the planet. But I like to say that developers are people too. And we definitely need to make sure that they don't have to work as hard to unleash the magic that they have, right? How can we create tools and products and capabilities that allow them to spend their time on the dreaming part of development and the engineering part of development, rather than kind of like code documentation and all the things that we know, the housekeeping things that they don't really like to do. And so the value that developers and engineers at Google can be unleashed when we take care of those, what I call administrative tasks or ripe for machine learning tasks that developers don't need to do. And so we can really unleash their innovative value and their engineering value and the value that they bring with their creativity in engineering when we minimize those kind of soul-sucking tasks that they're forced to do to be able to be in compliant and regulation and all those things. And so that's what we're trying to do at Google, where we're taking kind of like the burden of all of those administrative tasks from regulatory and compliance and other things that are getting in the way of engineering, and helping to standardize that so that the engineer can focus on the magic that they want to create in innovation. And so for me, developers can unleash a lot of that magic and provide value for companies when they have that time to spend in actual engineering.
So just building on what you said, Ovetta, look, our engineers are totally essential to our innovation process. And while we spend a lot of time talking about delivery, we want to go beyond that, right? We want to leverage them for their insights. We want them to understand what value they deliver. And so in our organization, to that end, we've done things like employ the team topology model, where teams are aligned to the value they deliver. And to the point that you were talking about some of the tasks that take cognitive load, that slow them down, we've created enablement teams to help simplify some of that and take that mental load off of the teams. We've also started our journey on platform engineering as well. So look, to that end, we've put a lot of effort recently into ensuring that our developers understand business value, they're tied to business value, and they understand the impact they're making on the customer every day.
And I'd just add, I think especially with how technology is evolving, and it always has evolved, it's continuing to do so, almost every problem becomes more technologically complex and ambiguous, for sure. Where are we starting from? New technology, new platform, here's 5,000 new different vendors that we're looking at this year, last year. The earlier in the process that we're seeing from developers is, from day one, oftentimes we can roll out quite a bit in the ideation conception process by bringing engineers further up into the conversation. So for us, it's certainly the lifeblood of how we deliver, but it's also, we're seeing it move further up in the problem space. It's not about building, it's about the way that we could get to building in many cases.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up that the magic happens when you have those different mental models in the same room trying to diagnose the right problem to solve. So having developers and data scientists and researchers and anthropologists all in the room together defining the business use case, defining the problem to solve is really important. Bringing in developers before code is written, bringing in designers before wireframes are developed. All of that is super important. And a lot of organizations and companies do not have the processes set up to allow that kind of collaboration. And so I think one of the things that we as an industry to help accelerate the developer experience is how can we use products and tooling like Figma or other products and tools, TensorFlow, other things to create collaborations between those different mental models. Because that's usually the stop of innovation, right? Where an engineer can go down in their T, in his or her T, and come up with an innovation. And then the code starts, and then there's not a designer there, or there's not a researcher there, or a marketer there, and so then everybody has to start all over again. So how can we accelerate that innovation with collaboration with all of these different mental models in the same room when the problem is being diagnosed to be solved?
And speaking of tooling, which you talked about, Ovetta, now coming to a topic that I think is top of mind for a lot of us at CES this year, which is AI, right? We've heard of a slew of AI tools to assist in software development. So in that context, how has your approach around measuring developer performance and productivity evolved? Sejal, maybe we'll start with you for this one.
Yeah, so this question is an interesting one. We use the words performance and productivity in the same question. And look, in my experience, I've seen those words used interchangeably. I've seen them conflated. And from my point of view, they're two very different things, right? If you think about what productivity is, it's measuring output. It's measuring output of a team or individual between point A and point B. And there's lots of things that affect output. So all the engineers in the room, what affects your output, right? Code management practices, your ability to deploy software. There's a whole long list of things. If you think about performance, performance is something slightly different in that it measures your skill and your ability, whether you're an individual or on a team, to deliver something. And that performance gets measured over a period of time. And if you've heard the old adage, right? Teams that stay together over long periods of time build performance over long periods of time. And I truly believe that to be true. And so now when you think about tools and metrics, getting to the question, I think metrics are also an interesting thing. I think the old school problem with metrics always is that it was a leader's thing. It wasn't a thing that was meant for the teams. And why? Teams were suspicious of what leaders were going to do with those metrics. Ooh, they're going to use it for bad things, such as judging the team, right? Comparing the team, using it out of context. I'm sure we've all seen that in so many different ways across our careers. So I don't think there's a single metric that measures performance or productivity, and we've probably spent way too long as an industry trying to find that one single metric. So in our organization, what have we done? We've largely been focused on transparency, and that everyone knows what everyone is up to. Transparency is an incredibly important attribute of an environment that a leader must build. They must model psychological safety, or the thing that I just said happens, right? Trust is gone, and metrics are used for all the wrong things. Coaches. So we've also deployed coaches in our environment to help our teams align to value and performance. We've actually worked with an external partner called Nerd Noir, who's been helping us with that, and helping us bring up the proficiency of teams. You kind of need that, along with the use of tools, which Ovetta did such a great job of describing, and tools are incredibly important. But one of the tools that we've used in our environment is something called DevX 360 that essentially is a survey and measurement tool and gives teams some insights across, I think it was 16 different types of data points that tell the team what's happening. So it measures things like code management, test efficiency, experimentation, how much time they're getting to do deep work and things like this. So you put all these things together, and what do we get? These teams are now developing action plans that are relevant to their context, and they're building performance over a period of time. So to the question of AI now, with all the transparency we talked about, look, those code tools, they're available in the environment, but the real is it's hard to see what impact it's having. Now, it could be having an impact. So because we have transparency, because we can see these metrics, we have an opportunity to walk around and say, all right, you're using a tool. Did it help with code reviews? Did it help with code maintainability? And you might find out about that, right? You might find out that there's been a good positive impact. Look, using developer experience tools and using the AI tools together, it tells you a little bit of a story of what's going on in the environment. And I think over time, we'll learn more about the impact the tools have on the developer, on the software development manager, and performance overall.
I was going to say the metrics conversation is a really important one, because I think, when I started as an intern at a company, they were talking about, hey, number of lines per code you're expected to write per week.
Oh, no.
And I would have loved in a world with AI, like, hey, okay, as many as you want, man, I got it. But there's a big thing with metrics around them being two ways. And I think you called out a really important part, is that you have to look at, measures of productivity, story points. We talk about, your velocity, your lean time to commit, your time to deploy, any metric you could look at. But a lot of it is bidirectional. Like, well, am I getting the right tools to do my job as a developer to an organization? That's one that I wish I had all the results to share, but we are surveying our engineering team as a way to get a feedback loop. Like, what are we providing? What vendors are you not getting access to? Where do you have the most challenges and pain points? Because, again, it's often I would love to be productive, but there's a policy. We love policy, but it also gets in the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm just going to hit really quickly. One of the things that we've shifted in the paradigm of when we look at the developer experience, especially when it comes to AI, is I have to remind people that developers are people too. And just because they have very smart engineering brains doesn't mean we have to put that burden upon them to figure crap out, right? And so at our UX group, we have kind of a vision of eliminating and reducing the hot mess. The hot mess between you starting in Colab to begin, your first, model, to trying to deploy that model into production. There's a whole hot mess in between there of boiling decision-making and policy and regulatory and safety measurements and all that kind of stuff. Why does the developer have to have the burden of figuring out and navigating that hot mess herself? Why does she have to be the one to determine when to bring in RAI, when to bring in the safety standards, when to bring in compliance, when what she's trying to do is develop models to be deployed? And so using AI to help make AI is going to be it is the mantra that I have been beating the drum since I got to Google, and saying, what can we eliminate from the responsibility and the burden of the developer that we don't even want them to have? Like, individual developers should not be the ones deciding what's safe, right? That's a group kind of, centralized decision that they should be able to pull off a shelf and know that when they're developing their model or when they're developing code, that they have all of the frameworks that they need to have to be in compliance. So why can't we use AI to do some of the things that we've been pushing on developers to be able to do to get models into development? I'm talking a lot about machine learning models because that's where I am, but that's in software code as well. And the second thing about, so the first thing is using AI to help developers make AI, and we have a lot of AI coding tools that helps developers take some of that burden off, and we're creating new ones. And then the second one is this fun? Right? Like, just because you're a developer and you're an engineer doesn't mean you don't have to show up to work and be delighted in the tools and the products that you use to do your job. So those are the two things that I'm obsessed about. Eliminating hot messes so that engineers can get what they need to do and deployed, and making it delightful and fun for them to do it. And that's part of our mission as a UX group, is to make machine learning accessible for all users, but also a delight to make models. And right now, it's not. It's not a delight. It is a hot mess of policies and procedures and people. And when we can decide to say, yes, they're engineers, yes, they're developers, yes, they're smart, but they don't have to navigate this new space of AI alone in some kind of chamber somewhere as a lone wolf without the collaboration of everybody else in the company helping them to do their jobs, then we will really unleash the innovation that AI can have. Because right now we're just kind of like Neanderthals hitting two rocks together and thinking there's a spark. We haven't even gotten fire yet, because we're still trying to figure out how to help engineers navigate to innovation.
So Ovetta, while you're cleaning up hot messes, I pick up hot garbage everywhere. So, this is all in the job description: hot mess, hot garbage. Do you pick anything up?
I mean, anything in between, right? Anything that falls in between those two categories, for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Definitely love thinking about AI as a tool to clean up the hot mess and the hot garbage. And I love thinking about AI as a tool for delight as well. One other big potential area that we've heard about with regards to AI and software development is its potential to democratize software development for everyone, right? So we could have a scenario where citizen developers with very little development experience are building really cutting edge apps and immersive experiences. So how are companies thinking about this, and how are they evolving their approach to attracting and retaining developer talent with respect to this? Tim, maybe I'll hand this one over to you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is to differentiate between skill set and mindset. And I think that's a really important part. Is in many cases, you could build, there's so many demos, I think, from the past few years of, hey, I have an idea. I took a picture of a whiteboard and it turned it into an app. Great. Now, where do you go from there? Some of the biggest challenges is, the mindset of creating. I love it. Like, fuel that need, because kids need it and we need it through our entire life to build something, to see purpose. But I think the skill sets always come into, every single tool, and I think we've looked at maybe 70 different, Gen AI tools for code development. Every single one of them will have the yeah, but. And the yeah, but is often, well, okay, it generated this code, but these packages it put into my NPM, repository, they're all from 7 years ago. Okay, well, how do I fix that? Like, I don't, if you don't know, then you don't know. And I think a lot of the skills to develop still requires, how does it connect? So who are the developers that are actually using Gen AI in this example are the most senior engineers that know how to figure it all out. And they're using it just to speed up some of the rote tasks of their job. Like, I need to do a filtered sort. Okay, is it Stack Overflow, or am I gonna ask a bot? Like, there's some of those things, you needed it, the context, you get it done. So I think some of the biggest things is, I think there's a lot of talk of, hey, Gen AI is going to replace the future of developers. So it's obviously there's more developers that are required to get it done. It's certainly just changing the way that maybe some of those rote tasks are done. But the importance of the senior engineer, the importance of learning the skills is super important, because, I think in general, when writing software, humans generally can't agree on standards and patterns and practices, but Gen AIs totally won't. So you will have something in the enterprise that's impossible. So there's a difference in the mindset and skill set of creating something awesome. Enterprise developers, it doesn't have the same impact. So it's a tool, not a replacement, for sure.
Yeah, I just have a phrase to say, video killed the radio star, but I still listen to NPR every day. So, like new technologies come and go, but the underlying kind of, I think hope that we have and what you so eloquently pointed out, Tim, is like, there still needs to be the person to ask the right questions, right? Even if the tasks are done. And I think generative AI is even more necessary because there's no moral code to generative AI models. They don't have an understanding of right and wrong. That has to be determined by somebody else, right? And so we need folks who can help lead models into the generative AI capabilities, lead those into the right tasks, right ways, right activities, applicability and desirability. There's all these kinds of things that need to be determined when we use AI. And so I think developers are fine and safe. They will definitely have jobs. I think the nature of their job will change. And so if you love looking at a 32-inch screen, writing code all day by yourself, that's going to be really tough to do in a generative AI world because you're going to need to shift your mindset from quantitative goodness and bars and you being the determiner and arbiter of what model goodness is to a collaborative, qualitative kind of, is this puppy funny kind of decision that you have to make with generative AI. And so what we're finding in our research with developers is that their decisions are increasingly being dependent upon other people besides themselves. So that other person could be a data scientist, it could be a researcher, it could be a prompt engineer, it can be a human rater, it could be an auto rater from a machine. So the ability for developers to collaborate and use that skill set to help solve business problems is definitely going to be something that developers of the future are going to have to glom onto.
Yeah, so plus to what you both said, but let's talk about people for a minute. And Ovetta, I'm going to repeat something you said, that engineers are people too.
Yeah, really?
Right?
It's kind of like shocking.
So
People don't...
a big lever for us is connecting, our engineers to business value and developing human skills through coaching and all of the things that we do in the environment. We are focused on building T-shaped individuals so that they're able to provide that specialization. A pet peeve of mine, and I'm sure you all have heard this, is when engineers are called resources. They're people. We're humans, right? And so, look, highly skilled developers continue to be important to us because of the thing that you just said. There isn't a tool out there that's producing code that's production ready, that is applicable to your context, right?
And scalable.
Yes,
Bulletproof.
right, with security and all the things that it needs, right? So business value and all the things that we said are still important. So having those talented engineers in the mix, being able to provide coaching and development, whether it be for the junior engineers at all different levels, is still very necessary. So when I think about AI tools, I think about, all right, I don't know, is it going to enable us to do less? What does less really mean? I don't think so, right? What I think it means is that we need highly skilled, talented engineers to provide coaching and context to the environment, because these tools are not, it's not going to replace coaching and leadership and all of the things.
So certainly a very exciting space. I would love to hear from you all. What advice do you have for organizations who are looking to make investments in DevX in a more intentional way?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's all go.
We'll talk at the same time. Again, like I'm just going back to what I know. I do have a computer science degree, so I was an engineer for a hot minute. But most of my time as a UXer has been spent with working with engineers. And so my advice to organizations is to listen to your engineers. They have opinions. they are good at expressing them, even in a way that you might not understand. But I think you need to meet them where they are. And secondly, they're not a monolith. Like, you can't just say, all right, this is we're going to create this policy or standard for all of our engineers. There are engineers who work in machine learning ops. There are engineers who work on the front door and the back door, and engineers who work in integration, engineers who work in networking. And they all have very unique needs. And so you need to really segment them in the right way so that you can provide the experiences that they need to do their jobs well. And also to do it with delight. It's okay to have fun at your job. And so I think my advice would be to listen to your engineers and to understand the nuances and difference in their user types so that you can create and standardized central tools, but you can create the bespoke tools or the tools that are more flexible or needed in modularity for developers to pull off the shelf when they need it. I think this idea that they have a monolithic linear experience needs to go out of the door, because engineering is like figure eight. It's very iterative. You may start with code, but then you have to go back outside to kind of get the business case and all that kind of stuff. And then you go back to defining the problem, and then you go back outside. And so there's no like, oh, I start here and then I end up here in a linear way. And so we need to create very flexible tooling and capabilities to allow engineers to go in and out of their T's so that they can match the business use cases, but also do the engineering that they need to do.
Yeah. So again, plus to what you said, if you think about it in your role, you're in UX, you would never build a user experience without talking to your users, right? So why would we build a developer experience without talking to them? So as a leader, it's your jobs to talk to them, to understand where they're coming from, what experience they're having, and all the things that Ovetta said, because it helps bring them along in the journey. So I'll say two other pieces of advice. Look, I think it's important that you're teaching the environment what some of these measurements that we've been talking about mean and how they use them in a responsible way, right? Teach them how to have conversations as a team. Teach them how to have conversations with their product partners or their business partners or whoever they may be interacting with, so that they're having a culture positive conversation about what they're learning. And create space for them to do that, because I think, 90% of the time, delivery commitments tend to take over. So space and time is important. And the third thing I'll say is, look, developer experience is not the job of the engineering organization solely. It's the job of the entire organization. Now, if as a technology leader, your job is to work with your product partners, your business partners, or whoever you may be working with in the environment to help them understand the value of a great developer experience and what's in it for them and what impact it's going to have, right?
And yeah, totally. And I would just say some of the things that we hear a lot about the terms like shift left, moving things earlier in the process, especially from testing, 10x cheaper if you get it in the ideation process than in production. And as somebody who was online at Christmas Eve fixing a production issue on something,
yes.
like I could feel it. But at the same time, when we look at moving things forward, it's also understanding that these are paradigms that are changing. So having a shared language to I'll call it the bilateral trust here, because moving something earlier usually means, hey, just work really hard and forever do that.
Yeah.
Moving it earlier. Oh, developers have to write automated tests. You have to fix a pipeline. You have to do all of these things. Well, in some cases, I'm more productive if I don't do that now. So let's have a clear conversation on expectations, because I think, again, if I'm only hitting metrics, if everything was, quantifiable, then we'd have easy lives. That's why we have all the, the qualified areas of, well, what actually did I do? What was the context behind what I did? So I think a common terminology is important. Technology alone won't save it.
And practices and methods, right? So collaborative practices, methods, and taxonomy really helps because in the end, we are creating services for people that have multiple capabilities that are integrated and connected, and no one engineer can do that, right? Like, it's a collaborative thing. And so moving, like in the design trend says, moving towards collaborating with design and data scientists and research, that is the new paradigm. And so we have to create new ways of working together but first new ways of communicating so that we all understand each other.
Great. We have about 4 minutes left, so there's time for one last question. I wanted to get your thoughts on what challenges do you foresee for organizations who are about to start or accelerate their DevX journeys, and what opportunities are you most excited about? Ovetta, we can start with you.
Yeah, who's heard this? Hey, engineer, I need you to do generative AI in this thing by Tuesday, right? Like that's what we get all the time from our users and PAs, and they're like, I don't know what business case, I don't know what model to use, I don't know what this person is talking about, what problem are we solving? So that's the challenge, right? It's like there's this amazing capability out there, and people are going to be throwing against the wall against engineers like Jackson Pollock, right? Like, just throw it out there. And I think one of the things we're going to have to do is to help engineers to what we call use case parse, right? How does this technology line up with the business problem that I'm trying to solve, so that they're not so kind of overwhelmed with technology and they're not actually doing the engineering that they really need to do. So I do see a challenge there, and where a CTO may say, hey, we need to use generative AI, so go figure that out.
Do it now.
But and so now the engineer is kind of like sitting there going, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? And I think the opportunity, though, is for engineers to be able to unleash more magic, so that they're not really thinking about certain low-level tasks and administrative tasks. And one of the things we need to do is to provide more playgrounds for engineers to take that technology and try to figure out how it actually will work against use cases. That's some of the things that we're trying to do with Google DeepMind and research. Is like, how do we get them in a place that has low risk and high reward for innovation, rather than saying, go do that and we're going to scale it right away?
What do you mean? It doesn't happen that way? I mean,
CTOs,
seriously,
man.
We're just crazy. So I'm going to ground my answer in some of the dialogue we've been having around metrics and DevX. So I think one of the challenges around metrics and this whole conversation we were having around performance and productivity is all too often we see something be successful in a pocket, and a CEO or a CFO or a board member says, okay, standardize on that metric. Go do that everywhere. You have to resist the urge to do that, because for those of you who've tried, you know that that doesn't work, right? You have to meet the teams where they are in their journey, rather than honestly expecting that they're going to come to you, because it's not going to go that way. And so, look, resist the urge when you see that happen, because if you're using the tips and techniques we've talked about today, you will see success. You'll see success in a pocket, but scaling that is the hard part. But that's what we are all here to figure out what to do, right? We grapple with that all day, every day. The thing that's most exciting, I made mention of a DevX tool, DevX 360, that we've deployed in our organization with the help of the coaching team that we're using, Nerd Noir, who, by the way, are seated up here in the front. They coach me all the time, so you can talk with them afterwards. It's been really, really cool to see the data that we've emerged in that tool. You know, I probably spent greater than a year wondering about what was going on in pockets, having theories about what was going on, but being able to see the information live is really great. Being able to see different cuts of it, whether it be by team, by geography, by type, that's been pretty awesome to be able to see what's happening at each team level. What's even more awesome is being able to see the type of healthy conversation and dialogue that they're now having with that data. It's pretty exciting because they are now crafting their own journeys, their own paths to continuous improvement, and we're not just seeing it happen 1, 2, or 3 times. You're seeing that scale across the organization, and I think that's really great.
Well, maybe I'll finish up with a few quick thoughts. I'll keep it short. Is certainly the lexicon. You know, there's so many different terms. Like when I say, hey, we want to fail fast and create an API that does blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what does any of that mean? Like, what are those words in between when we say we are doing this as a team, we're going to talk about this as a team, that it makes sense. And people know as a simple glossary, like the simplest thing that we should be able to do, that we can just have if we can agree that we have different terms, great. But let's put it down. So alignment on terms is one of the most challenging, most important things right now, because, you know, certainly at companies, people have been around for a long time at a company. They have a perspective from when they first started to what it is today, and it's changing rapidly. And I would just say the fact that most teams are not in person anymore, they're co-located, they're global in many areas, the learnings of things like Gen AI, the learnings of what's working, what's not, all of those little pockets of knowledge is still one of the hardest parts of why, in some cases, AI is an easier thing to ask than look through your desktop to find a document you created 6 months ago. And I think that's one of those areas for sharing across borders is still going to be one of the biggest challenges, but it can be done if you put some effort on it.
Awesome. Great insights. So we'll close here for today. If you would like to continue the conversation, please join us at 2:30 at the Optimal Design booth. You'll see that scrolling in the slides. Optimal Design is our latest addition to Deloitte Engineering's portfolio of services. So we look forward to seeing you there. And Ovetta is having another session tomorrow with variety around the impact of AI in entertainment. So I believe that session is called Tipping Point for AI. Check it out on your CES app and add it to your agenda. Thank you all, and a round of applause for our panelists.